I was interested in talking about the Dhyanalinga because that seems to be his most recent magnum opus, so to speak, his baby, his project that has happened for lifetimes. What do you know about it?
I think it'd be wise for me to share a picture. I have one right here.
There it is. And it's huge. It looks like it's tiny from the angle,
Yeah.
but it's massive, truly.
It's maybe 13, 14 feet tall, standing, plus the base, much more. So, I wanted to show the viewers so you get some imprint what this is. I've been to the Dhyanalinga. I've went. I'm very happy to say that.
Wow.
Went to South India, and when I walked into the temple, it felt like I'm standing in front of a big beast, like a monster of a man, but fully enlightened or very spiritual. This is a powerful experience. And from the first moment that I understood or learned about the Dhyanalinga, I understood its significance. I understood that it's such a blessing that we've all come at this time, that this powerful tool is available. I also understood that it's so easy to make spiritual growth because this tool is here. Sadhguru often refers to it as a tool. He says that it's like a screwdriver. If you want to unscrew this desk, you have to have tools. If you do it with your hands, it'll be virtually impossible. So, yeah, also I understand that the ingredients for this tool have been kind of made a very long time ago, many thousands of years ago, and it took a special person like him to put the ingredients together and make it. People tried making it in the past, but they failed. Lots of catastrophes happened. It took basically making this temple right next to the Shiva's abode in South India, which is the Valangiri Mountain. Valangiri Mountain is where the Isha Yoga Center is located, and this mountain right beside the Isha Yoga Center is this mountain that Shiva stayed for 3.5 months. And it reverberates with a kind of intensity. I have a picture of it as well. So this is the Adiyogi statue, that's Sadhguru, and that's the mountain.
Is that the same mountain that he had that first mystical experience on? Or is that a different one?
That is called Chamundi Hill. This is in his birthplace. Right. This is not the same mountain, but it took Sadhguru many years to find this mountain. He said he saw mountains in his mind's eye, and he thought everybody had this until he mentioned this to someone. They said, "What? Mountains? You're crazy." And he realized this is special, and he went out on a trip all around India until finally he came to Coimbatore, and he felt this very powerful vibration, energy, and he knew he was there. This mountain or this space is somewhere close. Yeah, this place is unlike anything that I've ever seen. It's just remarkable. It's something that you have to experience as a human being. It's just fantastic.
I like that. I love the ability for yogis to create these tools. I find it interesting because a lot of the spiritual journey is going beyond material things, going beyond objects. And yet the yogi says, no, don't be so polar in that you feel there's nothing in this world that's of value. Because we can spiritualize objects, we can consecrate them, we can use them as instruments to unlock different dimensions and energies of our subtle bodies. I think Sadhguru spoke about this being a multi-life journey. I was wondering if you know about his past incarnations, like Sadhguru Sri Brahma.
Yeah, it's making me very happy that you're asking me these questions. It's bringing up so much intensity in me. It all started, I'll give you a kind of quick synopsis based on what I've learned He was in love with this woman many centuries ago. His name was Bilva, and he was a snake charmer. And the woman's parents were very angry at the man for being, for dating their daughter. And long story short, they tied him to a tree and they released a snake onto him. And the snake bit him, and Shiva entered his life. Shiva entered his body. Then a few lifetimes pass of him struggling in meditation, and Sadhguru Sri Brahma is the last birth of Sadhguru. And as Sadhguru Sri Brahma, he also tried creating the Dhyanalinga, but failed. He didn't get the social support. I think Sadhguru Sri Brahma is the ultimate guru, or the ultimate yogi. Not even Sadhguru right now. Sadhguru Sri Brahma had a certain kind of fierceness and intensity, which I like. And in addition to this, when I went to Kailash, I saw Sadhguru Sri Brahma in Kailash's face, in the north face of Kailash. Maybe this is my mind's imagination, but
yeah. You had a vision.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
What do you know about Sadhguru Sri Brahma or his past?
Oh, I don't think as much about you, but as much as you. But I do know that I heard the story of how he ended his last incarnation. That because of the failure of the Dhyanalinga not garnering the social support, he deeply questioned himself, wondering, is it me? Is there something in this system that's not completely working? It was that Chamundi Hill that he went up for his last incarnation. And then I believe he exited his body through all the chakras, not just the crown, not just the root, all of them, to, like a plumber checking if all the pipes, the nadis are working, and realize that no, they were all working, they were all functioning fine. It wasn't time yet. The world wasn't ready. So there was some preparation the world had to do. That's my addition.
When I visited Coimbatore, I went up to this mountain. It's called the Velangri Mountain, or Kailash of the South. And I went to the space that Sadhguru Sri Brahma left his body. It's a little rock, it's a cliff edge. And when I sat there, it felt like this energy encompasses everything in the human being, or maybe in the universe. Everything that's relevant to this rock has. Sometimes you maybe feel energy, or you go to different temples, it's specific, but this place encompasses everything. It's very nice.
So what do you think about Sadhguru's relationship to Shiva? What is the dynamic between them? I know that Sadhguru has said various things, like he is the footprint of Shiva, that if you follow the footprints, he'll catch the man himself. I think he also said that he is not a bhakta, he's not a devotee. He is like business partners. It's like 50-50 originally, but then he said, no, I can't do 50-50. It has to be 100% yours.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me how he talks about Shiva. He also mentioned that he's a slave of Shiva. So I don't understand that relationship, but it's something that I want. I also want to have a partnership, because of how amazing Sadhguru is and what he's been able to accomplish. And I want those results, fantastic results.
You can tell he is not suffering in whatever the dynamic is. It is completely fulfilling to the deepest core of his being. I think we all seek something like that. I know many people assume that Sadhguru is an avatar of Shiva. However, something I know about the devas, the different forms of the divine in Hinduism, is that whenever Shiva incarnates, Shiva is always a devotee of Vishnu, working towards creating energetic pathways to Vishnu. And when Vishnu incarnates, Vishnu is working on the same things for Shiva, that they are this particle accelerator for each other, smashing into one another's being. And of course, Sadhguru's given name, Jagadesh Vasudeva, that of course is a name for Vishnu. So I wonder if other people notice that if he is likely to be an incarnation, it may just be Vishnu rather than Shiva.
I didn't know that that his name meant that. I always thought Jaggi means kind of like a king.
Yeah, I think it comes from the root that means universe, and Ish, short for Ishvara, meaning Lord. So Jagadesh, Lord of the universe. But Vasudeva, that comes from a name for Vishnu. Literally, his father in one incarnation was named Vasudeva, and as a patronym, takes the name of his father in reference.
Wow. Very nice. So I know you from the Mystics podcast. You were there. We were
That's right.
Speaking about the laws of nature, and you were the one guy that stood out to me. Your energy, I could feel it. It was palpable.
Oh.
And after a while, I saw your very big TikTok account. Very famous on TikTok.
A little bit, yeah.
How is it like? Because I know that there's some hiccups now with TikTok. Is getting banned or not getting banned? Can you fill us in on that? What's going on?
Well, all things come to pass. I was grateful to have a chance to kind of rise up on it. My original intention for the account was very different than it was now. I had gained almost 800,000 followers, but kind of since I've shifted towards more spiritual things, I've been losing followers over the past year. For every day it's like 100 to 1,000. And it's okay, because with TikTok possibly being deleted, I think it's a good time to transition to something new. I'm at peace with it, but I'm so grateful for the journey I've had on it thus far.
I'm glad you said that. That's definitely the right approach, that right outlook. I was watching the news and people were saying, "Oh, this is my livelihood gone, and I can't believe this," and very sad and like suffering. But yes, everything comes and goes, and that's how you know when you have wisdom. You appreciate that fact.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm very grateful that I'm able to make enough money on my live streams on there to pay for my essentials, my food, my toiletries, medication, things like that. And it's all voluntary. But I trust that it's not the platform that creates that wealth. It's what another person may be able to see in another. And I trust that all of the things that I'm able to bring, it reflects in wherever I go. The environment changes, but I do not.
So what is your intention now? Are you going to go on YouTube? Do you have any plans?
Well, at the moment, TikTok is still up. So I'll cross that bridge when I get there. It seems like it might stay, but if it doesn't, yeah, I think maybe another platform like YouTube or related would work. But I trust in the divine. I trust in the way the universe is going to flow. All I know is that I'm here today. I might not have tomorrow. Whatever I have available today is what I have to work with. And today, TikTok still works. That's enough for me.
Yes. Yeah. So when we had our discussion about the Dharma on the Mystics podcast, the Bearded Mystic, you were talking about Sadhguru. You were sharing some of Sadhguru's wisdom and knowledge. So I'm curious to know what you think about Sadhguru. How did you come across him? And yeah, share us about Sadhguru.
Sadhguru is a really big influence on my spiritual journey. Probably one of the first proper gurus that I listened to. My spiritual journey did not start immediately in Indian philosophy. It definitely started with an exploration of psychoactive substances. And so I was listening to Terence McKenna. And then slowly, it's like my YouTube algorithm shifted from, psychedelic proponents to more and more spiritually minded teachers. And it was very soon that I transitioned from Terence McKenna, I think, to Alan Watts. And then Sadhguru one day showed up, and I thought, who is this man? I find that he is able to express things in such a way that deeply leave imprints on me. I remember one time he said that a mystic is one who you can hand a flower and they will hand it back to you vibrating. And I find that to be true with his words, that someone can come up to him with a question and he just transforms the question into something more energetic and hands it back to you. And you're left with something that you already had, but now it's been expanded in a certain spiritual dimension. But I know he's very controversial and that he's untraditional, but I think that goes to show how realized he really is, that he's not relying on scripture. It's just intuitive for him. And he's the one that I've always returned back to. If I've ever had a low moment, I put on a good Sadhguru video and I'm feeling much better again. But I'm curious to know your relation to him, how you found him.
I also was a big fan of Terence McKenna. He introduced me.
Wow.
Yeah, he introduced me to the special vegetables, and when I was eating these vegetables, I would always watch his videos, and there's something to it. It's so mystical. And I was introduced to Sadhguru in 2012 or 13 by one of my Indian friends, two of my Indian friends. They said, "Hey, check this guy out. He's an Indian guru. You're into spirituality. You should watch him." And it didn't vibe with me. I thought he was just some guy, and he said various things that I didn't agree with about psychedelics.
Oh, really? Didn't click immediately.
Yeah, there was nothing. And I thought he was weird looking, big beard. I'm like, what is this? And then in 2019, I was scrolling through YouTube, and I already had started watching his videos. But an ad popped up. Sadhguru is coming to Toronto. And I thought, let's skip this. And I skipped for many times, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I skipped the video, as I usually do with ads. And then one day at night, I realized, you know what? This is wrong that I'm skipping. I need to watch this. And I watched it, and I paid attention very closely, and I felt the energy. And I thought, if this is probably an enlightened being, I should definitely go see him. In Toronto, it's $400. I can spend that much, and let's see. And lo and behold, I'm sitting on stage with close to 2,000 participants or more. I don't know how many people were there. And the stage is empty. Their music playing. Sadhguru is getting ready to get on stage. I don't see him yet. And I get a sense of closing my eyes. So I close my eyes. A few seconds later, I open my eyes. He's walking on stage. And I saw the light of God shining within him, through his solar plexus to be precise. And I saw he's so purified. There's no ego left. There's no anything of his left. It's just the light that is in the universe is shining through him. That's all that there remains. And at that moment, I realized why they call it enlightenment. That truly is enlightenment. So from that moment on, I was hooked. I was willing to follow him anywhere. And here I am. 5 years later, 6 years later.
I love that.
Yeah.
Do you volunteer with any of the Isha programs or anything?
Never volunteered, but never volunteered, no.
But whenever he's around,
yes,
you
I go. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a lovely being, that's for sure. I like what you said about just light shining through. There's nothing in the way, just an open door. I think Ramakrishna Paramahansa said something similar when people were curious about his nature. What are you? He said, I'm a window. You look through it. So I'm happy to have a shared interest in a shared sort of love for Sadhguru.
So, do you want to create a temple or an energetic space somewhere in the world or in your house?
I think I start with my heart, start with my mind. First, get that system working well. That's a long journey. There's all sorts of little tweaks you can make to one's own inner world. And I love decorating the inner world just like a temple. Just like a temple might be filled with mantras, you can fill one's own inner being with the reverberation of mantras. Just like a temple may be decorated with murtis and sacred images and yantras. If you meditate on those things, they make an impression in you as well. I like that idea first. But yeah, maybe one day. I mean, I consider myself still very much a novice, a student in all this. So I don't want to compare myself to anyone who is creating these wonderful systems, but I love the path of the yogi. And yeah, one thing that I don't think a lot of people know is that the path of the yogi is one that's even older than the Vedas. Many people know that a lot of Hinduism is based on the Vedas, these ancient revelations. And so people come to the conclusion that the ultimate path is Vedanta, to seek the end, the anta of the Vedas. But yoga is something that's even older than the Vedas. The Vedas came from the Aryans that migrated from the Proto-Indo-European culture of the North. But for thousands of years before they came through the Himalayas was the Dravidian civilizations in the south. And it's from those ancient civilizations that you have the first Shiva lingams and a culture surrounding Adiyogi and Shiva and various other forms of the divine. They have the scriptures that are known as the Agamas. And it's in the Agamas that you find all the consecration for temples and murtis and mantra creations and things like that. But later there was a beautiful fusion, like 5,000 years ago, between the North and the South. And Sadhguru is very much Southern in the sense of a yogi established in things long before even the scriptures of the Vedas from the North came. I know he gets a lot of flack for not being read in Vedanta. I don't think he gets enough credit for realizing what's beyond even the Vedas.
What made you so interested in Hinduism, and how did you get so knowledgeable about the words, and did you read texts, or tell me about your history?
Well, I think I really relate with you that it started from just kind of a curiosity. And a subtle yearning that you might not even understand at the time. In university, I had originally intended on being a mathematician or a physicist. I wanted to work at the Large Hadron Collider, particle accelerator in Geneva, Switzerland, as a kind of foreshadowing to what would become of my journey. There's actually a Shiva statue in front of the Large Hadron Collider in the Nataraja, the dancing Shiva form, which has a ring of fire around, of course, Shiva being the destroyer in the Trimurti, that he reduces things to their simplest form, just like physicists do with their particle accelerators, smashing protons near the speed of light to figure out what exactly the material universe is made up of. I really liked that. I wanted to get to the bottom of things. But I got to a point in my studies where I realized that physics hasn't gone as deep as the East has. The East, of course, didn't have particle accelerators in the way we do today, thousands of years ago. But they had a mind that was capable of becoming subtler than the atom. And so when I started to realize the pitfalls of science when it comes to my own intention of understanding the fabric of reality, I saw it as a natural kind of stepping stone to start exploring Eastern spirituality, philosophy, especially in and around India. But no, I'm actually not that learned. Just like Sadhguru says, he really doesn't read much of anything. I find that's very true. If you just put yourself in the right situations, naturally you become receptive to those things. So I've just kind of absorbed a lot of these terms and stories.
One thing that I get a sense of when I talk to you, I'm starting to realize what these New Age thinkers always say, that we're here to increase the vibration of the planet. And as your body changes, your external reality changes, and also other human beings' lives change. So what do you think about this concept? Do you think this is true? You think humanity is awakening, or we're going deeper into sleep?
That's a great question. Traditionally, people say the Kali Yuga has really just begun, and that we're something like 5,160 years into it, and we've got another 427,000 years or something. But there are other teachers, including Sadhguru, that says we've been doing the calculations wrong. We haven't been doing the unit conversion between divine years and human years right, or we haven't been taking into account the precession of the ecliptic or other astrological injunctions. Speaking of which, there's a big one happening at this moment. We can maybe put a pin in that. However, I know Sadhguru says we're actually coming out of the Kali Yuga. In fact, the Kali Yuga has already ended, and we might even reach whatever is after the Treta Yuga, then Dwapara Yuga. I'm not receptive to this on a scale larger than my lifetime, but over my lifetime, this is interesting paradox, because we do see there's an increase in natural disasters, an increase in corruption and governments and humanitarian crises and floods and food shortages, etc. At the same time, I think people are coming into contact with higher and higher spiritual things. So it really depends what exactly we're referring to. It seems like we're becoming more spiritual in many ways, but yet the world is becoming darker in other ways. I tend to unify these two things by saying that it's both true, because as the world gets darker, that light becomes more and more concentrated in us in some sense. When the light has somewhere to go, the metaphorical light of goodness and enlightenment and spiritual wisdom, when it starts leaving the world, it returns to us. It gets absorbed within us. Just like if you were looking for something that glows in the dark and you couldn't find it, the best thing to do is shut off the lights. And maybe that's what's happening, that as we get higher in our spiritual journey, that we need these darker and darker challenges in order to see our own light. But on the topic of raising vibration, yes, I think that's exactly what we are doing, is that although our consciousness is the highest vibration already, there's nothing that can go higher than that. We are taking the materials of the world and slowly using them to spiritualize ourselves. And at one point, I think it's going to reverse again. And from the spiritual wisdom that we get from having all these deep and raw experiences of the world, we are going to use that to make the world a better place again. But I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this too.
Well, looking in my life, I've noticed that people are becoming wiser, it seems, and more conscious, more spiritual. So I have faith.
Yeah.
But this, I wanted to ask you about this Mahakumbh. I kept on hearing about it, and I feel like I'm missing out. I have a fear of missing out on this. People told me to go. But I don't even know what it is. Sadhguru goes there, so I mean, I must be potent, powerful. I don't understand what's happening. Do you, can you tell me?
Yes. Actually, when we were on that last podcast together, one of our co-guests, Edwin G, he's there right now, I believe. So we have to understand there is a duality between our inner world and the outer world, that what happens here is a reflection of what happens outside and vice versa. There are spiritually regarded rivers in India that correspond to spiritually regarded rivers inside. There's a crossing of two very important rivers, the Yamuna and the Ganga. And that's already just holy, 24/7, 365. But there's a third river that perhaps one day was physical. Saraswati is her name. But since the time of the Rig Veda, at least, she has disappeared physically. But people say she surfaces spiritually every 12 years or so. Every 12 years, when Saraswati surfaces, she merges with Ganga and Yamuna. So it's a triple crossing point of three rivers, two physical, one spiritual. And people can detect an increase in either the flow or the volume of the river at that point. That's called a regular Kumbh Mela, which is already a wonderful celebration. A Maha Kumbh Mela is the square of that. So not every 12 years, but every 12 cycles. So 12 times 12, 144. And that corresponds with not only something happening inside, which I'll get to in a second, but also in space. In space, right now, we have a 7-planet alignment. They're not literally in a line, but you can see all 7 from the night sky. I think it's Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So all of them, except for Mercury, if I'm correct. I might be wrong about one of the planets. But anyway, all the planets exist relatively on the same plane in the solar system. It's very rare for them to actually radially align from the sun, which is what they're not doing. But they are all visible in the night sky at the same time. So they're all on one side of the Earth, you could say. And that's very special. When it comes to the inner world, Yamuna and Ganga correspond to the two spiraling channels around the spine, known as the Ida and Pingala Nadi, which represents the sun and moon principle. And they merge at the third eye. But their energies are not always flowing, along with the central channel, which is the spine, the Sushumna Nadi. When they are flowing, that's called Brahma Muhurta, the hour of God, or the ultimate hour. And that's the inner equivalent of a Kumbh Mela. And Sadhguru says that's about 3 to 4 in the morning, depending on your latitude and time of year. When the light is first hitting the earth, it's parallel to the horizon. That's one of the Brahma Muhurtas. There are actually multiple throughout the day. And you can notice when Ida and Pingala are flowing, when you can breathe through both nostrils at the same time. Usually that's around 3 or 4 in the morning. It's also golden hour. When the last light is leaving, you may check that your left and right nostrils are balanced. But something like 7 times throughout the day, your dominant nostril switches between Ida and Pingala. And even scientists today know that our left and right nostrils are associated with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. One has a flight or fight response. The other has the rest and digest response. So breath work is tied into all of this. But when they're both flowing, when they switch sides, that's the Kumbh Mela of the body. So you're not missing out on the Kumbh Melas in India when you have 7 of them every day. But the Maha Kumbh Mela for the body would be at 3 or 4 in the morning. And then if you can engage your central nervous system, your Sushumna Nadi, that's when you get Saraswati flowing and the energies begin to go upward. So everyone, the 500 million people that are in India, that's wonderful. There's nothing like going there physically, but we all have that also within. Unfortunately, you don't have to wait 144 years.
That's good to hear.
But I feel you, though. I also still, at the same time, I would love to go. But it seems like it's not in my samskaras in this lifetime.
Have you ever been to India?
No, I've never actually left Canada physically. But I like to say that my heart has already gone there. We have an energy body that extends well past the physical, and I do feel very affected by India and their sacred lands and cultures. But it's really lovely to hear that you were able to go there physically.
What part of Canada do you live in?
I live on the West Coast, on Vancouver Island.
Wow, nice.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've ever been out in this direction.
Only by plane, flying over.
Mm-hmm.
But too cold.
It is a very spiritual part of Canada, definitely. I think in the 60s and 70s, when all the hippies were being hippies in the counterculture movement, when that kind of ended, a lot of them went to the West, North America. A lot of them ended up on Vancouver Island. They're all now pretty old, but there's definitely an energy here that's very spiritual, with the rivers and mountains and oceans.
It's definitely too cold to be swimming in the ocean, but do you go swimming during summertime?
Well, it's funny you say that. Actually, in the middle of winter, I jumped into a frozen little inlet. I got a stick and I carved out a little hole. It was a good shock for my nervous system. Even in the summer, it's really cold, though. I mean, the Pacific Ocean is not exactly one that is that warm, even in the hottest days of summer. So I don't go often, but it's always a nice reset for the system. Having your body submerged in water, especially a large body of water.
Oh, yes. I would love to visit Vancouver at least once. I've always heard that it has a different vibe, energy.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to go. I'm in Toronto, it's completely the opposite. But okay, I think this is it. I think this is the end of our podcast. This concludes it. Thank you
All right.
for joining.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very grateful to have had this conversation with you, dear Shivaji.
Yes, and likewise, and you're always invited back. I'm sure we'll talk more about spiritual topics in the future.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, my friend.